Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nate Crespo, your host for today and forever, and welcome back to another episode of the Lawyers in the Making podcast, where it is my job to focus on the unique journeys to the law and law school of professionals in the legal field and law students. But let's talk about what we're doing today, because today we have another spectacular guest. He is a University of Washington Foster School of Business graduate and currently works as the Chief Operating Officer at Hemmat Law Group. He's held past positions as an advisory board member at Topline and as a senior analyst and consultant of mergers and acquisitions at NextPath Advisors. Excited to have him on the podcast today, Mr. John Socha. Welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today? Before going any further, I'd like to say a quick word about the sponsor of this podcast, Rhetoric. Back in episode 25, I had the privilege of having the CEO, Luke Yingling, on the podcast, and ever since that episode, fell in love with the product. Rhetoric takes user briefs and motions and compares them against the text of opinions written by judges to identify ways to tailor their arguments to better persuade the judges handling their cases. Rhetoric's focus on persuasion and helps users find new ways to improve their odds of success through more persuasive arguments. Know more, win more. I was able to see a demo of the product, and its cutting-edge technology and fascinating features make for a product I am proud to sponsor, and further shows the new digital era the field of law has been entering thus far on my journey doing this podcast. If you decide to book a demo, let them know Nate sent you. Be sure to check them out in the show notes below or at userhetoric.com. One word, userhetoric.com. Now, back to the show.
Oh, we're doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me, Nate.
Oh, no problem, John. I know John's excited today. John told me before that he is a listener of the podcast, and I thank him from the bottom of my heart for that. But John, before we get started, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Oh, of course. So as Nate so finally introduced me, I'm John Socha. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Hemmat Law Group. We work in family law emphasis. Honestly, we do international divorce, business division, and litigation. We work with a lot of expats, local politicians. So we're family law with a capital F, if such a thing exists. Um, More importantly, our office is really committed to changing the way both family law is perceived and the law is perceived in general. And we'll get into this, I'm sure, but um, a giant theme of our work is the law in general has a bimodal distribution of compensation, where you can either take a vow of poverty or you can more or less sell your soul to the nearest devil that will, bury you in money, but you usually will never see your partner or family for a very long time. And we're trying to, if not eliminate, narrow and close that gap. I'm immensely proud of both my team and the work we do, and our leadership team. Mr. Hemmat is truly a visionary. Um, and I'm trying to sort of spread the good word a little bit and let anyone listening know that it's very possible to build a firm that doesn't just look good and make money, but also feels good both to run and to work in. And I'm so excited to really be talking about that with your listeners today.
Well, I am just as excited to hear all about it. But let's go all the way back. Wonderful year, 2018. I love that year. I don't remember what happened, but it was great, I swear. You were at the University of Washington. You got a degree in law, economics, and public policy. You were on a pre-law route. You also part of the Husky 100, very impressive, as well as got a circle of recognition through some department. I'm forgetting the department, but one of them. That is very impressive, Tom. But you were there. While you were there, you were an executive impact analyst at Family Action in London. Got to do some traveling. You did some more traveling. You're a foreign service staffer at the U.S. Department of State in Rome. Wonderful. Never been to Italy. We'll get there eventually. And finally, you were a legislative session staffer for Senator Jamie Peterson of the Washington State 43rd Legislative District. Now, in all of these experiences, clearly they're not aligned to law, but you were on a pre-law track. So why did you decide to do all these internships? And as time went on, you also got your paralegal certification in 2020, going on from there. So you are as well a paralegal. Now, with all this experience in mind, why did you decide to go get your paralegal certification? Because it doesn't exactly align with the experience you had throughout your collegiate career.
Well, the best place to start is probably in undergrad in 2018. I have so I was born with a variety of neuro. I have Asperger's. I also have dysgraphia, which dyslexia is to reading as dysgraphia is to the act of writing. So I have no problem reading, but I have problems expressing myself in writing. And so for my entire academic career, I was sort of stuck in this place where I loved the academic process and learning, but really struggled to express my competency. So basically what that meant is I would learn everything in a class and then get like a B or C, which for someone who is as high achieving as the people who tend to go into law is immensely frustrating. And so what I did was eventually I didn't really have much strategy to my career at first. It sort of fell into place when I was at the University of Washington. I loved learning so much. I figured, well, I'm not going to do amazing in these classes anyways. Let's just go full bore. And I graduated 2 years early. Uh, in that time, student status is incredibly valuable as a concept. And so I finished all my coursework for my undergraduate in 2 years. And then I towed the line, went up to all the way up to the final 2 credit capstone. And then I said, that's enough. Uh, Let me put off this credit capstone for 1 full year and then do a bunch of internships. And then that way I can leverage my student status and I don't, chop my networking off at the knees before I graduate, be my own worst enemy. Um, Law, economics, and public policy is diverse. I didn't know what I wanted to do at that time, but I know I wanted to serve people. Uh, and so I served people first by taking an internship in London. That was a lot of fun. And then I realized I love, and there's actually another experience before that. I worked in Cape Town, South Africa, that I cheated and did not tell you about, so you couldn't have introed it. Um, I worked in Cape Town for a number of months before I went to London, and in both places, it was my introduction to politics and the law as a concept, both in a civil system and in a common law system. Um, and my passion for serving others really endured as my North Star throughout the next few experiences. The State Department, I worked at the Tri-Mission Embassy in Rome, so I got to work with the mission to the Holy See, to the Vatican, as well as to the country of Italy itself. So those are both officially recognized sovereign nations. So there's an embassy for each. And that was a lot of fun. I worked under Ambassador Eisenberg, who was a Trump appointee at the time. And are you familiar with the 2017 movie It? It's
Of,
based
of
on the Stephen
course,
King. Yeah, the
of
Stephen King
course.
novel. I watched it in the ambassador's villa. He has a private he has a private movie theater there that fits about 30 people. You can't find the ambassador's villa on Google because they blocked it out. So you can't even find it on satellite images. But that was I was like 19 at the time, and I was just thrilled to be invited to a cocktail hour, and all us and the other junior staffers sort of like piled in and got to watch a movie that we were really missing home because as much as foreign staffers love to serve their country overseas, we're still Americans. So it was a great slice of life. But ultimately, my time with the State Department, I got really tired of consulting manuals that were 2 feet thick for every minor action. It's the federal government, and we knew that going in. Um, but ultimately, I really wanted something to serve people more concretely. And I thought, well, I really like this government thing, but maybe smaller government is the right move. And so I worked for the Washington State Senate with Jamie Peterson's office. Um, and he is a fantastic. He's kind of like Batman. He's the perfect human. He speaks several languages. Yale Law School graduate. He adopted triplets. Adopted several children with his partner, who's at the time a school principal. And he commutes like 2 hours each way during the legislative session from his house in Seattle. And I also he runs and swims triathlons and lifts 10,000 pound weights with ease in one hand. I'm sure. So he was both an incredibly competent and an incredibly intimidating person to work under as one of my um, first experiences, especially since that year we worked on legislative reform for adoption and surrogacy in Washington, and also grandparent visitation, which comes full circle because it's a statute I still advise my clients on. In our our clients get advisory on on the issues that I helped assist nowadays in my current position, which I'll tell you more about down the line. And then ultimately, I decided maybe government just wasn't for me because it was still too bound by too many rules. I loved the work I did there with Senator Peterson's office and my colleagues in the Senate. I have nothing but great things to say about them, but it just wasn't the right move for me. So I moved to Boston because that was very logical. And I worked for a fantastic nonprofit called More Than Words. And I thought, maybe NGO is the place to be. because I wasn't quite ready to in my mind at the time sell my soul to a private enterprise because I just couldn't find anyone with who could fit my ethos. Um, and More Than Words is a fantastic organization. What they do is they're a bookstore, which isn't unusual. But what is unusual is that they're staffed and run completely by at-risk youth. So by at-risk youth, we mean the seriously at-risk youth, the youth that don't even have bank accounts at the age of 19, that don't have IDs, into their early 20s, or who may be parents at 14, 15, 16, or who people who have unknown immigration status or in the foster care system or criminally involved, any variety of severe risk factors. And the theory behind the business is when you're struggling that hard, any human, all 110% of your energy is devoted to just making it through the day. And so, the critique of so many of so many people who don't know better is that, why don't you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps? And it's because they have no more energy, time, or resources at the end of the day once they're done paying rent or caring for their kid or trying to figure out how they're going to get to work because they don't have a car or enough money to afford the subway. They don't have any time to focus on long-term improvements to their circumstance. And so More Than Words employs them. They learn business skills and accountability, and they find a community of other people like them, and they provide mentors. But just as importantly, about a quarter or a third of their time, they get paid an hourly rate just to do things like open bank accounts, to get your ID, to work with your case officer or a parole officer if you have one, or to get your kids or help enroll in food stamps, or they get resources to pursue things they never could otherwise. And then in 9 to 16 months, they graduate out of the program, and as they navigate through the program, they mentor the new kids coming in behind them. Fantastic organization. I worked with them as an outreach coordinator, running their logistics because they opened a new warehouse and needed someone to run the trucks. And I thought, yeah, I can make phone calls and pick up books, because all of their books are donation sourced, so they don't buy any books. And all of their physical infrastructure is in a city called Waltham and in Boston proper. They have 2 locations at the time that I worked for them. And then I got offered a position as a business training manager, and I worked that for a little bit and handed it off the circumstances to another staff member. And then I missed Seattle. I went through one winter in Boston, and I said that was quite enough. Thank you very much. And I missed the rain. There's no place like the Pacific Northwest. And as far as I've gone and as far as I've traveled, some things just call me home. So where I'm going with this, for a very, very long-winded explanation, is there was a tiny law firm by the name of Stephen, at the law office of Stephen Amir Hemmat. It was a one-room solo practice. We had no staff, and that's the way Mr. Hemmat really liked it. He was a fantastic and peerless attorney, and I got introduced to him through mutual acquaintance. And I came home and I was like, well, I think it's time that I look at this law thing directly. I love helping people. I love complex and sometimes ambiguous problems with incomplete data. And so I thought at the time, I'll just work for this guy for a year or two. He's a generalist practice. He did family law, real estate, probate, personal injury. Learn as much as I could in many directions I could, and I'll go to paralegal school at night, hosted through the University of Washington. And I went to paralegal school because I thought, well, if I go, it's taught on the Socratic method, on a curve, just like normal law school was at the time. And if I do this for 11 months and work a legal job during the day, and I get out the other side, that's my sign that it's ready to commit somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000 in tuition and opportunity costs to go and get a law degree and then maybe pass the bar. And the conclusion of this story is I fucking loved it. It was fantastic. I loved the direct. We now have focused down to family law and have done that for quite some time. Is get to a place where you love doing what you're doing and ignore the money, at least early in your career. And then once you find what you love, that's usually when it's easiest to make it profitable. Or the other way around is find something that no one else is good at, uh, and then get really good at that, regardless of your passion, and then your passion will usually develop. Those are the two ways you can find meaning in your life. That's my guru hot tip. In this case, it was both. Family law is looked down, and I'm not afraid to admit it's looked down on as sort of the dirtiest corner of the legal profession. Um, and in some ways, they're right. Most of the workplace injury stats in family law are directly or indirectly, or in the legal profession writ large, is directly or indirectly attributable to family law and family law alone. Um, but no one's good at running family law firms. Everyone wants to work for the big corporate practices, or they want to work doing personal injury. Um, and so no one was good at it. And I thought, if I could get really good at this, I can get really good at anything, because everyone's already figured out the rest. And I also loved it. So it sort of was just like, it was both. It was a double pronged attack at the same time, and I was in the right place. Mr. Hemmat wanted to start expanding rather than just spooling down his business, and so I've taken over as his chief administrator and business analyst. And so I do all our staffing, I run all of our oversee all our books, I manage all of our teams, um, and we've sort of grown into the Hemmat Law Group. The law office of Stephen A. Hemmat no longer exists. Um, we went from, in a great month, $30,000 in revenue for two of us. We do over $250,000 a month in business now, and it's only been about 2.5 years since we started expanding. So it's been a crazy journey.
Well, that was there's so much to digest. First, I have to say, I love my critique of school coming to life there, because you, sir, John, you are really, really intelligent, unbelievably intelligent, I'd have to say, and that the B's and C's do not reflect how intelligent you really are, my big critique of school. But it's wonderful to hear all those things. More Than Words sounds like a very, very wonderful organization that's going on there, allowing those people to have some purpose in their life, be able to get paid for finding that purpose, for getting the materials that they need, and uplifting those types of people. That is an amazing thing. I'd love to donate some of my books to them once I'm done reading them. But I will be sure to donate a lot of them, because I got great books. I feel like I got great books. But let's talk about the Hemmat Law Group. Now, you started there in 2019. You were only 19 years old when you started there, when he gave you the chance to sort of do it on your own and figure it out yourself. So how was it? Sort of that visceral feeling. How was it getting that opportunity at such a young age to really steer the ship in the way that you wanted to do it?
Well, it's the famous adage of necessity is the mother of invention. There was never a time in the early days when we sat down and were like, okay, okay, John, I know you just got here, but it's time for you to take. That's not how it works at an organization that small, or in a pressure cooker that intense. It was more like, hey, we need a way to send invoices to way more people now. More people are showing up. We're doing a better job. And I said, oh, okay, well, I'll get us a new billing system. And then I said, oh, well, oh my God, we've taken, since 6 months ago, we've taken on 8 times more cases. We need a customer relations management system. We need a new CRM. And then I said, okay, well, we'll spool up Clio. We'll get a Clio account. We'll get it integrated with a bunch of stuff. And then, like, oh my God, we're paying way too much for our phone bill. Like, well, let's get us a new phone system. And then it sort of just built. And then at that time, I was sort of like a staff member who didn't get asked to build the pyramid. The pyramid grew underneath me, which is, I think, the biggest piece of advice I got when I was still in my teens was, don't don't look for a job. Be concerned with being able to do the job, and the title will follow. And so what I did is I spent a lot of my time not so much understanding what people did at other offices, but what they didn't. Um, and the alarming truth for those in the audience is that very few law firms are run efficiently or managed responsibly. It doesn't matter the state. I'm comfortable making that proclamation across state lines. I have no knowledge of the UK and Canada, but I bet 70% chance that the image is similar, if not identical, in those jurisdictions. And that's a fantastic opening, because my recommendation is, don't go to law school right away. Go into firm administration, work somewhere, and make a name for yourself for 2 to 5 years in a jurisdiction near the law school where you want to go, and then apply, knowing who you are, what you're going to do, and whether or not law is for you. And you'll also make more money along the way because I get uh, dozens and dozens of applications from highly talented associates, and I wish I could hire them all, but I can't. I don't know where on earth I'd find another person that even approaches someone with my skill set. And I think that's a fantastic market opportunity. So, any students in the audience, please find me on LinkedIn at John Avi Socha. I'd very much be happy to chat about how to onboard into my speciality. Um, but make no mistake, I am also going to law school because eventually I want to join both sides of the fence together.
It's exactly the point. Now, I want to go back to that part about efficiency. You talk about efficiency so much. You talked about it on NBC, if I'm not mistaken. Was that right? Or was it MSNBC?
MSNBC, yeah.
There it
We I had a feature. I can't believe MSNBC reached out and featured me. They wanted Gen Z leaders in the workplace, so I got profiled. You can I don't want to shameless plug too many times in a row, but you can
No,
find that
please.
profile on we can find that profile on our website or on my LinkedIn page. But um, I try not to be impressed by what other people think of me, for better or worse. I think you should focus on the task in front of you and get really good at it. And then if people show up and they want to talk to you about what you do, then all the more for it.
So, in being so efficient, it is the key. It is the key driver that has been leading to all the success you have experienced with the Hemmat Law Group. Now, why is efficiency so key?
It's uh well, the trick answer is it's not. We Efficiency isn't key. What's key is that you understand what objectives you're trying to achieve, right? And then efficiency will follow, right? The goal isn't efficiency. The goal is to make sure your metrics, your key performance indicators, your KPIs are correct from the get go, or you have a clear idea of where you're going. And the reason that's more important than keeping efficiency in mind is because the reason most law firms are inefficient is because they don't know either what metrics to judge the task by, or they more importantly they don't know what they're where they're going, and so they implement all these systems that are all over the place, and then it's inefficient because they didn't have a laser focus on what they're trying to do. Um, that's why it's important, because if people don't have a clear idea of what's happening, your employees suffer, and then from there, clients suffer as a secondary effect. That's why I always say the clients come second, because if you don't put your team first, they won't be able to serve your team, right? If everyone's saying the client comes first, client comes first, then well, what about the people who actually serve the client's needs? The client comes first by coming second.
I mean, that is just absolutely spectacular. Another reason why no one should go to business school, because John's never been, and he probably knows more about business than probably I've ever met on the podcast so far. You talking about KPIs on here. This is what I'm learning about in my business management class right now. So you are well into it all. And now I have to ask you, talk about specificity, how important it is having those objectives and goals where you're laser focused on it. How important is being specific, not only from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective as well.
I think the to peel back the onion one more layer, at a business level, you want to be specific on where you're going, but the hardest thing to find is what you want to do yourself. What's important to you as a professional, and more importantly, what aren't you willing to do? I always tell people, telling people to follow their dreams is kind of a crapshoot. So I'm gonna sort of qualify my prior inclination of sunny LinkedIn guru advice. Is it's kind of useless, because telling people to follow their dreams, if they have 8 different dreams, they're going to get nowhere, right? At best, they're going to stretch themselves too thin, and then if you try and do everything at once, you're going to accomplish nothing. Um, and so I always recommend to starting. People usually have a strong inclination of what they don't like to do, what they hate, and start with the hate. Figure out what you don't like. Like, for example, I sat down when I was 20 and I said, I'm never working for a death merchant. I'm never working for Lockheed Martin. I'm never working for a tobacco company. I'm never working for a pharmaceutical company, or certain pharmaceutical companies. I've qualified that opinion since then too. Um, and then from there, I narrowed it down. I said, okay, well, do I, do I let? Can I stand the sight of blood? No, I'm not going to medical school. There we go. That eliminated 1/3 of the 3 professions I was considering. Thank God I didn't do that. Am I good at numbers? Okay, I'm good at numbers. Are we doing quantitative math numbers, or are we doing data analysis numbers? And I said, well, I can't do the heavy quant stuff, so there goes finance. You know, I'm a finance generalist, but I'm by no means somebody who can, manage your portfolio to beat the stock index over 20-year time horizon. And then I said, okay, I'm good at numbers. And then what's something else I'm good at is that my parents told me I never shut up and I argued too much. And I said, well, what's something that marries, my love of service and argument? And I said, the law is really the only thing that fit that in the long run. And then from there, once you get into the soup tends to tell you exactly what flavor it's going to be over time, so long as you're engaged and having a good time along the way. Um, I think my greatest strength was not thinking. I just kind of found the next general compass direction to head in, and then just walked in that direction, and then life finds a way of leading you where you're going to go. So I'm a big fatalist in that regard. It's a lot less stressful, and it tends to make you a lot more open to opportunity than someone with a 5-year plan, which I think are useless. By the time you get to 5 years, you're a completely different person. You're doing something that you didn't expect. Your plans fall apart. So let's just take it 6 months at a time.
I mean, John, you showed up here and you're just spitting facts right now, and I agree with everything that you're saying right now. It's absolutely amazing, especially that point about being general, not thinking too much about the decisions you're going to make, just moving in that direction. It very much reminds me of one of my favorite books, The Alchemist. One of my favorite books ever. I love it so much, and it's for that reason exactly, is that life will figure it out for you. You just got to keep moving forward, keep pushing, keep putting that pressure on, and eventually the soup flavor will eventually find itself. I love it so much. I'm stealing so much right now, John. It's going into my head and it's never leaving. Now, projected for this year, you're going to make $2.7 million as a firm. That is an absolutely amazing accomplishment for you guys. You guys made a couple million last year as well, which is absolutely amazing. But one of the key things that you were talking about, because I love doing my research, and you were very much priding the company on the great values that they have, the great company culture that they have, the great leader, Mr. Hemmat, the great leader that he is, leading people in the right direction, making decisions that need to be made. So, how important is having those good values, having that great company culture for obviously the company itself being efficient, having specific goals, but also in finding the company that's right for any person out there who are looking for a job? They're like, oh, I want to work here, I want to work here, or this other place. How do you identify, do they have those good values? Is it that good company culture? Is this going to be an efficient environment?
Yeah. So first is um, culture is what happens when leadership is not in the room. That's the metric of culture. I think the first thing when assessing any organization of any size in any industry is never bother asking management what sort of culture they have. Um, at best, they're going to blow smoke up your ass, and you can't believe them anyways because, of course, management or HR is going to tell you how great the culture is, no matter what the culture actually is. So, my first piece of advice is don't bother asking. You can come up with better, more targeted questions that give you more useful information. And then my second thing is contact people individually and find either alumni of the company or ask for references from the business. Ask them if they have former alumni they'd be willing to refer you to, um, or talk to people on the ground, or just call the business and ask their front reception what they think of the place. Or it depends on context, but one of those varieties. Go around management, find a way to get around HR, and talk to people about what they think when management is not in the room. It's one of the reasons why we refer our summer associate program. Third shameless plug of the episode: we have a fantastic summer associate program. We bonus you $10,000 at the end of the summer and pay you weekly. And we're an office of like 20 people, so we are approaching mid law and big law numbers for a small team. Anyway, um, we always hand out former alumni of the program to uh, qualified prospective candidates so that they can talk with them directly, and we don't never ask what they discussed. This includes people who chose not to return with us as an associate the year after they got an offer, and that includes people who did, current associates at our office right now. And so far, that has never once lost us a prospective lead, and that's so important because to answer the other half of your question, culture matters because culture eats strategy for lunch, right? It doesn't matter what sort of executable you have on the table as a senior manager, or as a mid law, or as like a mid level associate who's managing a small team. It does not matter what plan you lay if your team aren't bought in. And so, in fact, plans will materialize without you making them if your team is enthusiastic enough. If you get morale high enough, they'll solve problems without you ordering them to, which is the ideal state of any organization. It's the sort of state of flow. And then if that's happening, the culture is infectious. So if the culture is awful and everyone's bullying each other, that's going to spread. But that also means that if culture is fantastic and everyone likes each other, that's going to spread like wildfire. You can hire, I say quote unquote mediocre people, but from a management perspective, you can hire people who are less of a fit and then bring them in and they assimilate into the soup, and the soup brings them up to their A game that they were always capable of. Usually that other business is missed. It's a fantastic superpower. And the clients notice that. That's why, despite us being a family law firm with everyone and their mother is supposed to be hating us, as a high conflict nonetheless. We have a 4.9 star rating on Google because we work really hard to make sure our clients are happy, which is something that is not easy to do in any legal business, but at least here. I say that, I know, and then karma will mean someone will leave a review and we'll go down to 4.8, but we just hit 4.9 now last month. We're very proud of it.
Well, I myself am at a bit of a head loss because I made an error. I said that John never went to business school. He actually did. I said it in the intro and I just totally forgot about it. I was so excited hearing about all this business talk, and my hate for school came out and I was like, oh, he's never been. He's actually went. He was at the University of Washington, Foster School of Business Correction. And one comment, I have to make one comment on what you're talking about. On getting maybe not the mediocre employee, but someone who may not have the stats or the stature as someone who, went to Harvard Law School, Yale Law School, or something like that. But in getting them in that system, it's so important, talking about systems, how important having that efficient system, having that structure within the company that you're incentivizing sort of that best behavior, sort of the best version of that associate or that employee. And it just goes back to how important systems are. I love Mark Andreessen, always talks about how important systems are and how important incentives are. And that is clearly reflected throughout the company, Hemmat Law Group itself. I couldn't agree more about everything that you've been saying, John. It's been a wonderful experience right now. It's only getting better. But let's talk about your time at the University of Washington Foster School of Business. You're there from 2022 to 2024. Now, what went into the decision to decide to set off and go to law school? Or not law school, business school. I'm all over
Business school.
today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate you pointing that out. I did graduate with my MBA actually only about a month ago. I graduated on the 18th of August 2024. So I'm fresh off the boat, so to speak. That was a night school program. So I attended for 2 academic years. I applied for the class of 2025 and I accelerated and graduated the class of 2024. It was a night school program, so it was 3 years instead of 2. And I went because I talked with Mr. Hemmat and some years ago, and I said, like, we're doing great, but there's things out there we don't know. We could do better. I know the zeitgeist out there is that an education it may not have the best returns that it did in the past, and that's true, but the returns are still there. Even accounting for their opportunity cost and and the tuition, it is still there. You just have to have a targeted and specific reason to do it. So don't let the naysayers dissuade you from a formal education completely. I'm sorry, Nate. I know I hate to say
Me.
that. Yeah, I know. But it's valuable because I went not because I wanted to learn how to take over a company, fire all of its employees, and then get $100 million bonus before quitting on a golden parachute. I went because I wanted to be a better manager, right? And there was just things I didn't know. There were people I didn't know how to care for properly, and I wanted to change that. If there's anything I could do to afford a better environment to my team, I will absolutely spend 4 nights a week from 6 to 9 p.m. in lecture if it meant I could build a better business and build a better team, and it's absolutely paid off. And shout out to Mr. Hemmat and the entire Hemmat Law team for tolerating my absences and for letting me embark on that opportunity. And actually that's carried through in our team since we offer tuition sponsorships to every single person on our team, no matter seniority, from the very moment they start working with us. No waiting times. We've sponsored people going to get their paralegal certificate. We just had someone last month graduate with their PI licensure. So they went to a private investigation school by night at the University of Washington. Shout out to Katie Olson. Yes, and that's so valuable to us because we can't provide a better client service if we're not constantly improving ourselves. And then the office, your employer, has invested interest in that mission, right? We invest in our people as if they will never leave, and we celebrate if they ever do. And the best part is no one has ever left our office for a competitor. So it's actually, we've never had to celebrate when someone leaves us yet. So, I'm sure the day will come one day when it's time for a change. But uh, so far, we've stuck together like glue over the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like the place to be, I have to say. Is absolutely amazing. You're sponsoring those people, investing in those people to, achieve the dreams. Maybe their dreams may not lie at the law group at this current moment, but you're preparing them for the future. You're preparing them for their future endeavors. If they want to go down a different path, figure out something else. You're giving them the tools to allow them to excel in those types of things. And I think it's just absolutely wonderful. Now, another thing with the Hemmat Law Group is that you are a hybrid law firm as well as being a law firm. You are also a consulting business, and you are the only Clio certified channel partner on the West Coast. You're one of 6 in the hemisphere itself, which is very crazy. So, can you talk about that hybrid business model as well as being Clio certified? I don't know what that means. I want to know what it means.
Oh, yeah, sure. So we got asked, how did you do that so many times over the last couple, just generally about all sorts of stuff. We got by other law firms, by partners, by law students, by paralegals, by administrators, by other COOs in the legal industry. How did you do that? How did you implement that system? And so we said, you know what? There's enough demand here. Let's just start offering our services in a consulting wing. So we have a small consulting wing. We're very selective about the clients we work with. We work with other law firms and law firm partners, and people wanting to hang their own shingle and go solo on how to set them up on various systems. We love Clio. We plug Clio whenever we can. We don't get paid anything for doing that. We just try and sell the law firm that we built, and Clio is an integral part of that. We also have, we're unusual. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Hemmat Law as an entity, but we also have a full development team. So we also build our own software. Um, and that's been a fantastic asset for people because it's all part of that. Our mission as a business and me as an individual is to change the way law is described. And I believe the reason we have so much dysfunction and anxiety and angst across all industries of law, particularly family law, is because no one knows what they're doing in management and the shit runs downhill. So I think if we could, I don't think it's malicious. Well, maybe for some it's malicious because you'll always have, the bottom 10% of the curve. But I think for 90% of the people in the legal industry, they're trying their best and they just don't know it. They don't have a better way. And so we're trying to show them through example that, look, here we are, come get us. And there's been a fantastic reception from the market so far, and we've done a lot of good. We've helped a lot of people find the places and the practices and the clients that they want, and I sleep well at night knowing we do that as an office. We're also going to be working to bring some of our software tools, sometime in the next 6 to 9 months publicly, and we're going to be giving it away for free. So yes, exactly. We're going to be giving it away for free. We'll run it on our infrastructure. We'll be giving it to other law firms. More to come on that in the coming quarters, but we really want to get the way we do things out to as many people as possible at as low a price as possible, and the lowest price possible is zero. So we're really excited for what the future may hold. We also just hired 2 attorneys last month, so we're adding them to the website this upcoming week.
Well, I think I'm just as excited to see the future of the Hemmat Law Group as you are, John, because it looks like it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be wonderful. Putting your software out there for free, letting law firms become more efficient, get those systems that they need. It's just wonderful. The business model is wonderful. Everything is just run so beautifully. It is one of the most perfect. I don't, nothing's perfect, but it sounds like a perfect model for any law firm business out there. I just can't believe it. It's music to my ears. This is the sweet symphony, I swear. Now, something that I saw when I was looking through your LinkedIn page, doing my research as I do, there was a paralegal story that went very, very viral, has over 2,000 engagement likes and comments and reposts. But It was the harsh truth of big law. This paralegal had such a terrible experience at this law firm. She would get all the associates got called lazy. Everything was all over the place. So, can you talk about that story? Talk about that post specifically. What was so significant about it?
Yeah, so I for those in the audience, I post on LinkedIn pretty frequently, and one of the topics I share the tragedies of big law through anecdotes, and the stories that always go the farthest are the ones of the people in my orbit. I have a friend who worked for a large corporate corporate department. Uh, that department or that practice group, I should say, it was not healthy by almost any metric. They had the business, but the management they kept subjecting the team to. They cycled through, in a single, I think, 12 calendar months, they went through 10 associates and three different managing partners. No one could stabilize this thing. And the end of the year, three associates quit, all in like a 4 to 6 week span. So it was truly a volatile situation. Add on top of that all the normal trials and tribulations of big law, billing 2,200 plus per year. We often forget that some staff are often subjected to that as well. And so I think the attorney narrative sort of blots out, those of us in the trenches who don't have law degrees but still work just as many hours. And the last managing partner to come into this practice group was just the I think he was like the final boss of both toxic masculinity and work culture, where he just thought that all Gen Zs should toughen up and you should do the old, uh, you know, uh, Gordon Ramsay turned up to 11, where he just insults you and your mother until you learn properly. Except that that's not really how people learn. It's why even Gordon Ramsay doesn't do that anymore. And so she ended up, after being abused, there was a tiny footer typo she made on one page of like a 78-page document, and she got screamed at for it for 10 minutes, and she quit on the spot. And now she works at a much better law firm that cares for her and supports her, and she also makes about, I think last I heard, like $30,000 more. And she gets to see her kid and husband, which to me is the ultimate victory in addition to the income. And that's sort of a story that encapsulates what we're trying to do here. It's also why I dissuade people from going right out of law school from undergrad, because you often don't properly know what a healthy work environment looks like, don't know what you want to practice, and you're committing 250,000, $250,000 to this education, and most people get out the other end and find it's not for them. And that's why something like only like half of people are still even practicing law 5 years out of law school, which is a horrible fall off and not nearly enough time to recoup your expenses and the stress and the time. I mean, if you even count your time to go to law school and become a lawyer on $100 an hour, a fraction of what you'll actually charge, probably add like a $500,000 more on top of that, and that's conservative. Um, and we really want to stop that. I've had associates who've applied to work here, summer associates. Um, the summer associate programs aren't designed to tell you what it's like to practice at big law firms, or at most law firms. Actually, they're supposed to have, wine and dine you and have a good time, and to emotionally invest you in this law firm, get you to stop looking for other opportunities over your 3L, and then you come back thinking it's going to be a vacation just like 2L summer, and then they realize, whoops, here's 5,000 pages. Now you're actually making us money. You got to pay us back for those dinners we got you. And also you have huge amounts of $150,000 in debt, and now we'll squeeze you to death for the next 2 to 4 years until you quit. And best of luck. Quit whenever you're ready, but no one will pay you as much as we will. So, and I think that destructive cycle is really not healthy for anyone, because even if you get through it, you're a different person, right? Law school teaches you how to narrow your thinking, is what I always tell law students. For better or worse, it teaches you how to narrow your thinking, and that narrowed thinking combined with the pressure cooker is never a good combination for all but the most psychopathic among us, which is why attorneys are always derided as terrible. Um, sometimes it's not deserved, but you see that theme come up a lot.
Now, speaking of law school, John has his eyes set on law school. Just 15 days ago, he had taken the LSAT. He studied for 6 weeks, was telling me before. But what now, after many, many years, graduating undergraduate, after going to business school, graduating just a month ago, why are you now deciding to go to law school?
Because law school is not stressful if you know what you're doing and you have a job lined up afterwards. Um, and really, there's nothing more insightful than that. It's not scary. This law firm will be here, as far as I can tell, until the end of time, and they'll be happy to take me back. Um, and that means you could just relax and focus on learning. You don't have to do the rat race. You don't have to worry about being or avoiding the gunners. You don't have to involve yourself in politics. You don't have to do posturing. You'll be far more authentic, and you can focus on what you want and value during the journey instead of trying to cover as much ground as possible while also studying for your next upcoming finals. And that combination means that a huge amount of the emotional weight is lifted from your shoulders, and I enjoy the intellectual exercise. I probably won't be top of my class, but I will carry that forward for the rest of my life, and I think it's easily the next thing for me because I don't think people should go to law school right away, but I think you should go to law school if it's right for you. I think I took a meeting some years ago when I was with the University of Washington. I went on a research trip to the DC, um, Washington D.C. area, and one of the stops was with like a State Department consulate, and one of the guys that worked there had worked in the civil service for like 30 years, and he said, "Yeah, I'm getting another law degree from Georgetown this year. I think it's just going to be fun." And he wasn't even going to use it. He just had fantastic benefits, and he had been, saving up his pension for so long that he did well enough on the LSAT to get a scholarship. And so he was just a perpetual student. And I really want to sort of carry that energy forward. If I'm going to be privileged enough to be in this position, I might as well use it, especially for the betterment of others, especially if it lets me bring this message to more people.
Law students, are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or short on time in law school? Maybe you just want someone to show you a step-by-step framework to master the topics you're learning in your classes. I know the pressure you're under, and I've got the perfect solution for you. My course, The Law School Operating System, is proven to help you conquer law school with confidence and ease.
Created by Lisa Blasser, a former guest on the podcast and founder of the Law School Success Institute, this course breaks down every subject into manageable main topics that you run through a comprehensive study system to thoroughly prepare you for class and final exams. No more feeling like you need to know everything all at once in the beginning.
But that's not all, Nate. The Law School Operating System also teaches you how to schedule your studying and time effectively. For every topic, you'll know which study step you're on and when you'll complete it every week of your semester. No more mad dash cram sessions, more time with your loved ones. And with my system, you'll walk into your exams knowing you've given 100% of yourself, that there's nothing more you could have done to succeed, and there's no better confidence than that.
Lisa breaks it down like this: one class, one list of main topics, and one system to master each topic. With recorded and live sessions for students available on her website and partnerships with law schools nationwide, the Law School Operating System is here to help you thrive from day one to the final exam. Ready to take control of your law school journey and operate at your full potential in law school? Visit www.lisablasser.com today and enroll in the Law School Operating System. Be sure to use code LSOSNATE10 at checkout for 10% off the recorded course. That is code LSOSNATE10 at checkout. Now, back to the show. Yeah, as always, as I always say, always got to find what you're right. It is the tagline of this podcast that there is no straight path to law school. There's only your unique journey. And that journey, it may be nice to put it off for a couple of years, get some experience under your belt, see if it's really, really right for you. Because like you said, it is a huge, huge financial decision. It is a huge undertaking. It is so much of your time. The best asset, or the most important asset in anyone's personal portfolio is always, always your time. It is always of value. It is always moving. It is always going away. But it's so, so important to make sure you're valuing it and making the right decisions, not overthinking it, like you said, just sort of moving in the general direction. Let's see what's over here. Let's see what's over here. Figuring out that path for you. And everyone has the unique journey. Everyone has it. So what takes someone one way may take you the other way, whatever it may be. But you just got to figure out you. Everything always starts with you. I know you were thinking that, John. You were probably going to say it because you're just so brilliant. I really, really, really am impressed with you, John. But at the Hemmat Law Group, you are tech forward. You got a great technology stack, as I was reading. So this is the final 5 questions, and this is the first of the 5 questions. John, what is your tech stack? What does it look like? What recommendations do you have for people, both in business and in personal life?
So I'll start with business because that's where I'm focused. So Clio CRM, we use Clio Grow, and we are on the Microsoft ecosystem. I recommend the Microsoft over the Google ecosystem. Google Docs is for heathens and ruffians. No way. If a law firm sends me a Google Doc, I'm jumping off the nearest bridge. Which I think is pretty rare. That's it's. I will say I hold the M dash and the Oxford comma in high regard. Um, Legal system, no one wants a law firm that uses Slack. There are law firms that use Slack. They're fine organizations. I have strong opinions about them. So, no matter which ecosystem you go with, we also have a custom integration with an SMS platform called Haymarket that allows us, so you can actually text our office line as if it were a mobile phone, and we have a concierge that lets us internally manage texts as if they were incoming DMs. It's also hooked up to our Instagram. It's hooked up to our Facebook, so you can message us on almost any channel or get in touch with us almost any way conceivable, even on WhatsApp. And we'll be able to respond live. No agents. It's us internally, and that's been really cool. The reason we use the Microsoft ecosystem is because it integrates with so many things. It's standard across the legal industry. And Microsoft Teams, we don't use Zoom, we use Teams, is also our phone platform. So you can get a calling like VoIP license so that you never have to use a cell phone. You use the Teams app on your mobile device and on your desktop. And that has a custom integration with Haymarket. And so we are able to stay in touch with clients in ways that few other law firms can, because clients don't like email, especially retail clients. Retail clients, as in, does not mean shopping clients. It means non-business clients. Non-business clients love text messages, and they don't at all want to email you, no matter no matter what's going on. Helps us be super efficient and super responsive. The more ways you can communicate and sound exactly like your clients do, the more they'll like you. So if you're working with big corporations, use email because corporations use email. If you're working with retail clients, use text messages, WhatsApp, Instagram DMs, whatever, because that's what they do and that's what they sound like. Fantastic client coordination. I could talk about this for hours. So instead of doing that, I will move on to our finances. Our finances are run by Bill.com. That's Bill Spend and Expense. A fantastic and creative name by the Bill team. It used to be known as Divvy, Divvy, but they renamed it after they acquired the company. That runs all our invoicing, internal receipt management for our teams, client expenses, and it also invoicing is in invoices we pay. Invoices that go outbound are all done through Clio. That's where we get all our income from our clients, Clio. And then we also use My Pleadings as a drafting platform. That's not going to be very applicable to most people because it's like only family law in Washington and Oregon, so it's an incredibly niche tool. And then I highly recommend. Hold on, let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything. I highly recommend Washington Trust Bank. Washington Trust Bank is our bank. We used to be with Key, and they're terrible to deal with, so we are no longer with them. And then we use Raven scanners. Raven scanners, I know that's very niche and specific, but if you want to scan documents, it integrates with both Dropbox, which is instead of Clio, we use Dropbox for our file management system, Dropbox Business. And it integrates with Dropbox directly, so you can scan something physically in our office and it ends up in our Dropbox system. And we use Dropbox because people use Dropbox. Businesses and retail clients use Dropbox. They're familiar with the systems. My advice to administrators who may be listening is don't overthink it. You don't need to have a super expensive, crazy, insane system. As long as it's intuitive and accomplishes the specific task you set out for yourself, that's all that's needed. We don't use personal Dropboxes. This Dropbox is Dropbox Business, and that allows us to add additional encryption, additional file management solutions, and to also manage various access points for our team to manage case conflicts. And then QuickBooks Online. We use QuickBooks Online for amazing for businesses who generate millions and millions of dollars. We have a full bookkeeping team. fantastic tool. I can write checks from anywhere on the planet. Our office is fully remote and hybrid. And those would be the core of a great law firm. It's never been easier to set up a law firm, assuming you have a law degree already. It's never been easier. We really live in a golden halcyon era.
That was the best tech stack segment of all time on this podcast by far. I mean, in flying colors, the best one ever. You gave the whole tech stack from top to bottom, and I just love it so much. The most sufficiently answered tech stack question in the history of the Lawyers in the Making podcast. That is you, John. I hope you're proud of yourself because it was
Well,
absolutely amazing.
in that case, I should also mention that Dropbox also has Dropbox fax and Dropbox signature. So all our e-signatures and fax message, we don't have a physical fax machine. Our fax comes into our emails. So there we go. That's the full tech stack. And then LinkedIn, I want to plug LinkedIn as an extension of our brand in a way I could never express with a million words. LinkedIn is how I make most of my professional connections. It's how I bring in new resources for the team. It's how I initially found you and got on this podcast. If anyone is listening, law students, administrators, partners, associates, post on LinkedIn. Even if nobody likes it, even if nobody comments, only like 5% of the people on LinkedIn generate any content, share anything about themselves. And it is a superpower that so few people are willing to, because everyone's watching and very few people are talking. And that means you're going to get noticed and people are going to flock to your banner on whatever mission or cause you choose. I have an associate right now. I just met him a few weeks ago. He wants to be like the number one pallet guy on LinkedIn. He distributes, recycles, and manufactures pallets. And he's a he's a young guy in his 30s. He is by no means boring and dusty, and he is on LinkedIn and he is killing it because all these gigantic distributors, no one else is looking on LinkedIn for their pallet, distribution. And the reason this is relevant is because if he can do it, so can you. You have something interesting to say, please say it. So, big plug for mass media there.
Oh, I mean, I have to agree, of course. Proud to be a part of the 5% who's posting content on LinkedIn. And it also goes, just like your friend there, the associate in the pallet business. I mean, finding that niche is so, so important as well, because you may not think there are people who are into pallets, but I'll tell you what, that guy's a great example of when you find that super, super niche topic and you just chip away at it and chip away at it, people will come flocking over. A great example of this is Laura Frederick. She does exclusively just tax stuff, and she is huge on LinkedIn. And when she talked about it on the podcast, she was like, yeah, no one was talking about tax law. But she's like, I make these little cartoons, I say a little thing about tax, and she's like, people were absolutely loving it because there was no one else out there. So sometimes when you have that niche topic, you can build your own market. You'll be a market of one. And that's always the best thing you could possibly be. But fourth to last do you want to say something about that, John? You were going to say something.
No, not at all. I was going to say no one can be used, so make sure to use that.
Exactly. The authenticity is just so, so important, especially at any time, at any point in time in the history of the world, being authentic is so, so important. Now, fourth to last question here, John. Live on Lawyers in the Making podcast. What are your book recommendations for people? It doesn't have to be about the law, just some of your favorite books, something you give a gift to someone.
I'm going to be very boring and say The Client-Centered Law Firm by Jack Newton. It's a fantastic book. Also, Radical Hospitality, if you may be familiar. I'm blanking. It's been a while since I've read that. Let me just quickly. Rats. I can't find this. There we go. Rats. Radical Hospitality. I'll follow up with you in the show notes later and get you the author. But it talks all about. Yeah, it's
Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara.
Yes. Oh, thank you. The unreasonable hospitality. But the core tenet is that you have to be radically hospitable to those around you, both with business associates and clients. Thank you for the correction. And then also Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I know is like vanilla is popular for a reason. These were foundational books I read. When I was I'm still young, but when I was even younger, when I didn't know what I wanted to be or who I was, and I was I was intensely shy for most of my childhood, and while I'm told I perform pretty well on camera, this getting in front of things, I should tell the audience, is always nerve wracking. I post on LinkedIn, and I'm scared to do it every single time, but I keep doing it because I know how valuable it is. Between those three books, they'll don't look tend not to look for books that teach you how to the skills. Look for books that teach you philosophies, and then once you have those philosophies and values that are useful to you or to educate you about new niches that you may not have known about, then go online, where in my opinion it's you can get far more information and value and context than you can from a book, and then go look for that. So books are not instruction manuals; they're windows into the heart and soul. Find the authors that mean something to you.
John, you're on fire today. My God. There's just so many moments in here where you could just like get a quote, get a nice quote, and it will be like one of the more famous quotes I've ever like. A window into your heart and soul is what books are. I've never agreed with something so much in my entire life, because that is the absolute truth. And going back to How to Win Friends and Influence People, that's probably the most valuable book I have ever read in my entire life, and it will stay as the most valuable book I've ever read in my entire life. Because when you read it, you just learn so much about yourself. You're like, oh my God, like I didn't even realize that I do that certain thing when I'm talking to people, when I should be doing this thing. You're like, what? It's like, the world becomes new. Your framework on the world completely changes, because it's like, wow, there's so many different ways to look at these things. There's so many different perspectives. And now I have this new one, and I just see the world in a new light.
I think also honorable mention to Francesca Gino's Rebel Talent. This is a good one to read. It's a good one to read because for those of you that do not know, Francesca Gino was a former professor at Harvard Business School. And I say former because she was indicted on allegations of data falsification and plagiarism. And last I heard, she was suing Harvard Business for dismissing her or suspending her. Read the book, because if the allegations are true, it's all false, and the studies she cites mean nothing. And it's a perfect example of something that was extremely highly regarded, that sounded amazing, that might be complete bunk. And that's a really valuable thing to read, like O.J. Simpson's, How I Would Do It, or whatever his book was. That's not the actual title. I'm sure I got the title wrong. But find things that have been proven untrue and read them, because you'll find that the best of them tend to sound just like the true stuff. And so you should absorb all mediums, books, online content, blogs, podcasts, all incoming information that you have access to. You should review it with skepticism. Because the truth in life and in management and in business, no one has figured out a formula, because if someone had figured out a formula, then there would be no need for business school. So view everything with a healthy skepticism, be willing to change your opinions, and keep an open mind, and also an open eye for people trying to stab you in the back to raise their own profiles, particularly in the area of expertise.
I mean, as the great Socrates says, the only thing that he knows is that he absolutely knows nothing. Always got to have this skepticism. I love that so much. Oh my goodness, John, I'm loving it today. But the last question here. What are the types that you consume, the types of things that you consume, not food, on a daily basis? Whether that be through social media, so Instagram, YouTube, Reddit, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok. I always forget about TikTok. I'm adding it to the list now. Any Substacks that you read, any podcasts that you would recommend? What is crossing the transom of John's mind on a daily basis?
Sure. So we're on Reddit at u/Hemmat Law. I'm not telling you my personal handle, but you can find our law firm at u/Hemmat Law on Reddit. We're on r/lawyer talk, r/lawyers, r/law school, all the usual suspects. We're also on Instagram. We're on Facebook at Hemmat Law every single time. We're also on LinkedIn. Our office does not post on our LinkedIn page. We invest our time and energy on our senior managers. So I have the strongest LinkedIn presence. Hot tip for those in the audience: do not invest time in gendering favor for an entity. It's always people that people gravitate towards. That's why you don't care about Nike, but you do care about stuff like LeBron James. They invest in people. I actually don't remember if that was Nike or Reebok that did the LeBron James
It was
No, that was Air Jordans. Was
oh
that
Air
Jordans?
Jordan, yeah,
Air
Jordan.
Jordans. Yeah,
That's
the
Nike.
Jordans. There we go. I am not a sneakerhead, so please, I just outed myself there. But there's a reason that individuals are always gravitated. So we're on LinkedIn that way. Um, Beyond that, I'm not on many social media. I not even personally. I don't have an Instagram personally. I did get told by my social media intern this last summer that I had minus 1,000 aura for watching YouTube Shorts, which is true. I am on YouTube Shorts, which is truly awful thing to admit on this podcast. Um, and then I think the only thing I'd add is that I've been playing a lot of Helldivers too.
Oh,
That I think
very
that
nice.
counts. Yeah, I think that counts as media. I am still in my 20s, so I think I have a little bit of a while before I turn to dust at my seat. Um, but yeah, I think what we're most looking forward to if people want to connect with me is again I'm going to plug my LinkedIn. I respond to DMs religiously. You can also email me at john@hemmatlaw.com, HEMMAT, hemmatlaw.com. Our office would love to hear from anyone and everyone. And we really want to make more connections, even if there's no immediate need to speak with us right now. The great thing about life is that it is very long and the world is very small. So I'm sure we can help each other one day.
Yeah, and for everyone out there listening, of course, all of John's social medias, websites, emails, everything will be in the description below, so you can all find it there and go and chat with John because he's more than willing to chat as he was today, putting on a brilliant display. I just have to say, it really is. And Helldivers 2, very good game. I don't have a PC, so I can't really play that stuff, but it's a wonderful game. It looks very, very interesting. There's a lot going on there. So I've watched a couple of videos on it. And I myself love YouTube Shorts. A lot of my professional wrestling content I get from YouTube Shorts. I'm on there for minutes on hours just looking. I could watch The Undertaker talk on his podcast till tomorrow. So that's what I love to do. So don't worry, I'm in the same boat as you, John. I love those YouTube Shorts. But second to last question here. What does an ideal Friday night and Sunday morning look for John?
Oh, Friday night and Sunday morning?
Both?
Okay, so Friday night, I don't like to do stuff on Friday nights. That's my decompress time. I'm incredibly introverted. I can do one-on-ones fantastically until the sun explodes, but if you catch me in a group of people, I'll sort of do that thing where you just hang out until someone talks to me, and then I'm very happy. Please come up and talk to me. I hate injecting. I will destroy whatever delicate balance of social web has been constructed. When you get that circle of people at the party, and I come in like a wrecking ball. I can never make a graceful entrance into situations like that. So I like to stay in on Fridays. Me and my partner Alexa have been watching a lot of House reruns.
Oh,
Yes, House MD. I know it's a guilty pleasure. The plots are astronomically wild. But the show just holds up after so many years. And then Sunday morning is I don't get the Sunday scaries. So I get to enjoy every second of my weekend up until I wake up on Monday. And so what I love doing is I love getting outside. I think the Pacific Northwest has um, fantastic climate, but more importantly, a fantastic wilderness that's easily accessible and will not try and kill you. Unlike places like Arizona where it's 120 degrees during the summer. And so I like to get outside, no matter how rainy it is, no matter how gray. And I just went to Mount Rainier just a week or two ago with some friends. And saw way more marmots than I thought existed. I didn't actually think marmots were real until I found like 5 of them just hanging out by like federal employees by the trailhead, and a lot of chipmunks too. And I really think that natural beauty is something to be admired and preserved. And so I always try and get outside and get some fresh air on my weekend.
of course, I love my morning sun more than anything on this world. I got my chair in my backyard. Also, I have one chair, that's it, and I sit in that chair. I've been sitting in that chair since last year. I always need my morning sun. But speaking of Arizona, I myself got to do some hiking in Arizona. Had a close encounter with a snake. So yes, those things can kill you, so you got to watch out for them. Always got to be cognizant of what's going on around you. I as well have seen the entirety of the state of Washington. I took a bus from Seattle to Canada when I was going to Alaska with my family many, many years ago. So the Pacific Northwest, John's not lying. It is beautiful. It is luscious. It is green. There's so much ocean. It's a very, very beautiful place. I recommend it as much as you do. And the funny thing about House, you know how I got into House? YouTube Shorts. They pulled me. I kept getting clips of House. And I'm like, wow, this show's like really interesting. Like, why do I like it so much? And I'm like, all right, let me just actually watch it. So this past summer, started watching House. I'm on like season 5 or something. But like you said, like the plot lines are crazy. It's like I think it is a much better version of Law and Order than anything else. Like it is just riveting. There's so much going on. Like it's intellectual stimulation as well because they're going through all these tough problems. So like we have all these symptoms. You know, what does this connect to? Everyone's throwing out names of different diseases. They're doing all these different tests. You know, it's like, oh my God, I remember the one episode they had to like kill the guy for like 5 minutes in order to like get into his brain, and then they brought him back to life. I was like, yeah, so
we just watched an episode last night where they stopped a girl's heart for like 6 hours and then brought her back to life by turning off her life support machine. And I'm like, wow, it's a really good thing that I don't know anything about this, or else I'd be trying to, I'd be trying to leave the room. That's why I can't enjoy Suits. Every time Mike Ross settles a case in a fortnight, I get immensely frustrated. I tried to get into that, suspend my disbelief to get into Suits, like numerous times throughout the years. Can't do it. All legal shows are off. Honorable mention to My Cousin Vinny, a fantastic movie, and followed up by Legally Blonde. But who doesn't like that?
of course. And I've actually myself, I've never watched Suits before. I haven't got into it yet. And just like yourself, I don't think I'd enjoy it. I love my House MD. He's just such a great character too. He's so authentic. Like it's amazing. And he's actually British, so he's using an American English accent as well. There's just so much to it. It's so wonderful. He's an amazing actor. But John, we're down to our last question, our final question. We do this at the end of every single episode. But John, what are your words of wisdom for the aspiring law students, the current law students, the legal professionals, and pretty much anyone else out there, because you got so much wisdom to offer to everyone?
Don't listen to too many people. I think if you ask enough people for advice, they'll point you in 360 degrees. You ask one person, should I go to law school? They say immediately everyone should go. And then you ask someone else and say no one should go. And then you ask someone else and they land somewhere in the middle. People also have lots of opinions on how to get jobs. Be skeptical of the advice you hear from lawyers. At best, their advice was from COVID quarantine, but 98% of the time, the sort of lawyers you're asking for advice was from before COVID. And COVID was a meteor strike on the Yucatan Peninsula of the legal industry, and nothing is the same as it was, just 5 years ago. Law firms are now hiring far and wide. Our Washington law firm can hire anyone in the country, and that simply would not have been accepted or possible just a half a decade ago. And I think most career services, most lawyers, most firms have not caught up with that reality and are still handing out outdated information. And I think that's a real disservice to everybody in the audience. And especially since this is why I tell people to wait just a few years before going to law school, because you'd have no way to know that. There's so much noise surrounding career trajectories, whether or not you'll enjoy the law, what area of law you'll like, that there's simply, if I was a law student, I would simply, without the context to ground my opinions, there would be simply no way for me to parse truth from fiction. And I could end up committing myself, heart and soul and body, to an effort that was not the right fit or may not even exist. And this is advice I hear the least. So be skeptical, and keep your eyes open and trust in your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, don't participate, because peer pressure is one of the ways that the legal industry perpetuates itself and all the suffering that comes with it.
Well, John, you're a student for life and a skeptic for life. And I love it more than anything because that's the model. That's Socrates right there. And we love it so much. He's my favorite philosopher ever, and you embody it so much. But John, it's been a pleasure. It's been one of my favorite episodes absolutely ever that I've ever recorded. Honestly, genuinely. One of the smartest people, John Socha, everyone. One of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. But that is the episode. That is the podcast. So John, thank you so much for coming on here, spreading your wisdom, spreading your experiences. And for everyone out there listening, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check us out, lawyersinthemaking.substack.com, lawyersinthemaking, one word, substack.com. And I will see you all in the next one.